Every time a new FromSoft game comes out, there is always an outcry from people who think that the game would greatly benefit from having an easy mode, and that having one would make the game more accessible to new players. The usual response to that outcry is the people who enjoy the game responding with "get good" and continuing on. Today I want to discuss where I fall on that issue. I've spent a decent amount of time in the Dark Souls trilogy, totaling around 60 hours in the series. In this time, I, like any other Souls player, have had some ups and downs along the way. I know firsthand just how hard these games can be, and I even wrote a script for a video showing how hard it was for me to beat the Bell Gargoyles, who are among the easiest bosses in the trilogy. When you play these games, you will die a lot, and a lot of times it will be completely your fault. When Elden Ring came out in 2022, the games that had been somewhat niche up to that point were shoved into the mainstream, causing the difficulty discussion to come to a head, with people all over the internet getting mad about how often they came across a boss they just could not beat. A word that came up a lot was accessibility. According to some of these people, if the game was easier, a lot more people would find it enjoyable. Accessibility features are mainly used for people who have disabilities, making it so that anyone can play the game. This is great, and every game should have these for free. I strongly disagree with people saying that something being easier to beat makes it more accessible. I think the difficulty is what makes these games so popular, and if you don't like difficult games, that's fine, but don't act like things should be changed completely to change your personal view. Every piece of media isn't made to fit every person's interest. If I were to take a game like Animal Crossing and say, let's get rid of all the farms and the animals and replace them with dragons, I would be basically asking for a fundamentally different game. Games shouldn't lose a chunk of their identity just so you can feel a little less challenged. Dark Souls is an RPG based around leveling up you and your weapons to overcome the area you're put in. If you water down the challenge of leveling up by making levels cost less souls, or making enemy attacks worth less damage, things of that nature, things would change drastically. Speaking of challenge, if you've clicked on this, you've probably played a Souls game before and know the feeling of finally beating a boss you've been stuck on. The relief of reaching a point you failed to reach over and over again gives a great sense of accomplishment. Remember the script I brought up earlier? This is an excerpt that I think fits really well. I instantly felt a level of release and achievement after beating the gargoyles. To understand the effect that beating the boss had on my brain, I did some research and found two articles, one on setting goals and the other on achieving them, so I'll be reading an excerpt from each of them. The act of setting a goal releases the neurotransmitter dopamine and motivates you to take productive action. A popular study published in Nature noted that dopamine not only spikes when we set a goal for ourselves, but when we're close to achieving that goal. The next article, entitled "The Science of Accomplishing Your Goals," reads, "When we get something we want, a promotion, an ice cream cone, or a kiss from a loved one, our brain releases dopamine. This chemical is often known as the feel-good neurotransmitter because it does just that, makes us feel good. But what if you just want to experience the game's ending and don't want to slowly get better? Maybe you're someone who wants the destination and you don't want to put a lot of time into it, and that's fine. These games have always had an easy mode built in, that of course being mage builds. Every time a new FromSoft game comes out, there are thousands of best early game OP build videos out there, and after a time investment of 10 to 15 minutes, you've made the game considerably easier for yourself. It feels like a lot of people hit a wall in these games, then they get frustrated, and because there isn't an obvious menu option to make things easier, they just drop the game and move on, missing a really fun experience. I personally don't use the mage build, but who cares? These games should just be used as a fun pastime, and if you want to play a certain way, you should. The Soulsborne titles are meant to be enjoyed. Some people enjoy a slow burn into becoming an all-powerful god in the game of their choice, while others want to steamroll their way through, and both are fine. There is no definitively right way to play these games, or really any game. Every video about the subject comes to this question, so I might as well say whether or not they should have an easy mode. I'll be real with you. If Miyazaki adds an easy mode to Elden Ring 2, I won't be mad at him. I won't use it because I enjoy the journey and don't want to water down my experience, but if someone wants to make things easier on themselves, that's fine.